My name is Raina. This story takes place in January 2020 when I was about 25 years old. I had just moved to the city of Rockmore, Alabama for my new job as a reporter for a local news station in my area. Since I was new in the city and looking to meet friends, I downloaded a popular dating app for the first time. Being that I worked in news, I heard more than a few horror stories about the dangers of online dating and meeting people online. But I pushed forward, determined not to let my fears and terrible anxiety get in the way of possible connections. Within a few hours of making my profile, I got dozens of matches and messages of people looking to meet with me. Overwhelmed by the onslaught of thirsty-ass men, I left most of them unread. But there was one profile that really caught my eye. There was a man named Mitch, who was a police sergeant with the local police department in my city. According to his profile, he was college educated, 6'2", no kids, and even had a cute doggy named Rocky. Bingo, I said to myself. I eagerly swiped right and quickly saw that we were a match. Just a few minutes later, I began working on a story that I had been following when I heard the ding from the dating app. I see that I have a message from Mitch. Hey Raina, so you like traveling, meeting new people, and reading books? Do you also want to go out with me? He says. I responded, haha, we'll have to see. How are you? I'm great, how are you? You look really fucking sexy. Thanks, I reply, even though his forwardness makes me a little uncomfortable. We continued to exchange messages over the next few days as we bonded over our hectic work schedules. Despite my initial reservations about Mitch's forwardness, I found myself drawn to his charisma and the ease of our conversations. Mitch shared stories from his time on the force, telling me about his love and dedication for serving the same community he grew up in. I, in turn, opened up about my own experiences as a journalist, discussing the highs and lows of chasing stories and my passion for helping people tell their stories and keeping the public informed about what's going on in the world around them. Our connection felt genuine, but I couldn't help this uneasy feeling that I would get from him from time to time, whenever he said something strange. For example, he asked me what my off days were, and when I told him, he quickly offered to switch his off days to match mine. This immediately raised red flags to me since we didn't know each other at all and hadn't even met yet. Despite my growing unease at some of Mitch's behavior, I brushed it off as just his eagerness to spend time together. After all, it wasn't uncommon for people to rearrange schedules for potential dates. However, as our conversations progressed, there were other instances that set off alarm bells. Mitch would often make comments that seemed possessive or controlling, like asking who I was talking to when I took too long to respond to him. And also, he would express dislike for male coworkers that I mentioned, wanting to know if I spent time with them outside of work or if they were more than just colleagues. These behaviors made me increasingly uncomfortable, but I brushed off these glaring red flags as just my own paranoia, a decision I would later come to regret. After talking for a few days, we decided to meet up on a Saturday morning for breakfast at a popular brunch restaurant in town that Mitch suggested. As soon as he greeted me, he gave me a hug and surprised me with a dozen roses. We sat down and it was just like talking with a friend. He told me about some of his crazy experiences being a cop and the wild calls he would get. I spoke about some of the weird things that happened to me while being out and reporting on stories, like the time a strange man approached me and rubbed his hand on my back while I was live on air. We also discussed how we both grew up in strict Southern households, and we just really connected, or so I thought. Out of nowhere, he started asking me a series of personal questions back to back. How many boyfriends have you had? Have you ever slept with a coworker? Do you think you'd be ready to have a baby in the next year? The barrage of personal questions from Mitch caught me off guard. It felt like an interrogation rather than a casual conversation. The warning bells in my mind grew louder as his questions became increasingly more invasive. I knew right then and there that I didn't want to continue seeing him. I got more and more bad vibes from him, so I finally faked a phone call and pretended to have a reason to leave to get out of the date early. In the days and weeks afterward, Mitch would continue to text me to try to set up another date, but I ignored him completely, seeing no reason to continue our relationship any further. Finally, after about a month of ignoring his texts and calls, he finally stopped contacting me altogether. About 6 months went by since the last time I heard from him, when one day at work, my news director walked over to my desk and told me about a breaking news story. Raina, the Rockmore Police Department just sent out a press release about one of their officers resigning amid rape allegations. Call down there now to see if you can get someone to give you an interview. All right, I say with a mixture of confusion and nervousness at the prospect of an authority figure being accused of such a heinous crime. As I pulled up the police department's website, I was horrified to find the following press release. The Rockmore Police Department would like to provide information to the public regarding allegations allegations of sexual assault involving former police officer Mr. Mitch Smith. In January 2020, Mr. Smith was immediately removed from duty once the serious allegations came to our attention. Our Special Victims Division and the State Bureau of Investigations are both conducting investigations into the allegations. Upon the initiation of both investigations, Mr. Smith resigned before termination. The evidence gathered in this case has also been presented to the District Attorney's Office to pursue potential criminal charges against the former officer. The Rockmore Police Department wants to reassure the public that it has taken appropriate action in this investigation. Chief Mary Smith says open communication and transparency remains our top priority. This is still an active investigation, and further information will be released as we are able to do so.